Let's go back to the bracket before we go, because I want to talk about easiest, hardest paths to the national championship now that we have an actual bracket to look at. Okay, number one thing that jumps out for easiest is Indiana.
Yeah, for sure.
Alabama and Oklahoma both can have, well, Oklahoma has offensive struggles.
Yes.
I cannot imagine that against Indiana's defensive front and what we saw them do to
Oklahoma's offensive line is
going to have a lot of problems. Alabama's been shaky, can't run the ball, right?
Ty Simpson hasn't been good lately either.
Since like Halloween.
Yep.
Okay, so that looks pretty good to me, and you're avoiding Georgia and or Ohio State until the national championship game.
Right. So looking at the top there with Texas Tech and James Madison, Oregon. So Tech, like, obviously went out, spent the money. They've upgraded the personnel, but certainly you don't feel like they're a team like Ohio State that you've already beat, or even a team like Oregon that's right there that you've already beat in terms of their talent. And then James Madison. So Indiana, certainly the path looks like it's one that, you know, Signetti's over there. Well, the first grin of the year he would give us.
He did smile after
I know, I'm joking.
Ohio State.
I'm joking.
But actually, I will say, this is what the number one seed is supposed to have.
Sure.
Last year.
Yeah, number one seed was in hell.
Yeah, and that was the conversation we had on Selection Sunday, was that they drew Ohio State.
Right.
The roster that was the best in the country as their potential 8-9 opponent. And obviously that's where they lost. So that's an important factor there. Anyone else jump out to you as easy?
I mean, Georgia would be another one for me, where you've got Tulane and Ole Miss, which they beat Ole Miss already. And then, you know, you get to basically to make it to the semifinals, I think you can pencil them in. Whatever happens after that happens after that. But Georgia looks like they're sitting pretty to make it to the semis.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I do think, though, because the 2-3 are Ohio State and Georgia, it's tough for both of them.
Oh, it's hard.
I think
in Ohio State, with the matchup that they're going to have after Miami and A&M play.
Right,
like,
right. They definitely got the hardest path, right?
I mean, number 2 team in the country.
Man, that Big Ten championship result ended up being
huge.
A big.
They said it didn't matter. They said it was meaningless. And Indiana wins their first Big Ten championship in ages. And Ohio State's sitting there at the bottom of the bracket with kind of the death path over there. Like,
as the 2 seed.
It's a huge deal. And by the way, Fernando Mendoza probably going to win the Heisman, and Julian's over there licking his wounds. Like, I guess this is the conference championships will matter regardless of what it has to do with teams being in or out.
Well, and they both kept first round byes, right? Like, but it did end up mattering 2, 3, 4.
No doubt.
And again, like, who's getting rematches, who's getting matchups that, like, we already know they're going to play well. Look, I want to throw this at you. We weren't going to hit on it, but now that we're talking about byes, last year that was a big talking point.
It was.
That the teams coming off byes all lost. Again, the seeding was messed up last year.
It was.
Because you had to have the conference champs. I don't know that that's necessarily going to factor in this year.
No, I think the actual seeding was more of the issue. I know people were like, oh, look at how much time was off. And in the case of a team like Oregon, for example, who was getting Ohio State, maybe you'd like to not have Ohio State after they got their rhythm in a game. But the time off between Ohio State's first round game and when they played Michigan was about the same as Oregon's time off from when they played in the Rose Bowl back to when they played in the Big Ten Championship. So this wasn't you spent too much time or more time than anybody else. I think matchups were everything when it came to what happened to some of the teams that had a bye.
Right, and again, Notre Dame didn't play in a conference championship.
Right.
So, like, there were teams that had breaks on the front end by not playing that weekend.
Right.
Ended up having similar amounts of time. What entices you? What are some of the second round games, quarterfinal games that, like, you would really like to see? I mean, it's whoever Ohio State plays.
100%.
That's probably
I think so. And then I do think the Indiana, whoever they would play, is another one of those intriguing, like, Indiana just matched up with Ohio State extremely well, and the rosters are completely different. And that's kind of going to be the story for how Indiana would do this is Curt Cignetti is a hell of a ball coach. Bryant Haynes is a great defensive coordinator, creates chaos, and Fernando Mendoza goes out there and makes big throws. Oregon, I think, is an interesting team in this race because they're not healthy right now. And if they get healthy, I don't know.
I mean, again, they're heavy favorites against JMU. JMU has not played a team like Oregon.
Right.
Oregon, Texas Tech would be awesome.
You feed families.
Because you have strength on strength.
Yes.
Amazing explosive offense versus the defensive front and the aggression, the turnovers that they produce.
Some of the aliens that are rushing the passers.
Yeah, like that will just be an awesome, awesome game. So I think we're going to get that one. I feel like I can go out on a limb there.
I mean, we could probably pencil it in. But I do think just from the Oregon as a team standpoint in this thing, by the end of the regular season, they were so banged up. I mean, they were as injured as anybody. Offensive line, their pass catchers were banged up. And I think if they're a healthier team heading into this playoff with that Dan Lanning talking about the pit in his stomach all offseason for how they went out last year, I don't know, they'll be a team to watch for sure.
I don't know. I'm excited, though. I really think the top four can win it all, right?
I think so.
Texas Tech can?
So Texas Tech, my one thing after watching them a little bit more deeply on tape is when they face an offensive line like Oregon's, the way that Indiana's playing, or certainly if they were to make it all the way and could face a team like Georgia, maybe not Ohio State after what we saw, how do those guys match up? Because the best offensive line they played all year was Utah. They've got a couple first-rounders out there. The only sack they got was a cleanup sack in that game. And so that's kind of where I'm trying to figure out, is that defensive line going to be able to create the same level of havoc that's made them successful this year? One team I did want to ask you about, because we've avoided this the whole time we've been talking.
A&M?
Ole Miss.
Oh. We also haven't talked about Texas A&M.
I know.
They were in the top 3 for a long time.
They were. We'll talk about them. We only got a few minutes here. They've got a head coach, but they didn't have their head coach, right? Like they
have their offensive coordinator
they brought
and their
him back,
defensive coordinator.
right? Yeah, Charlie Weiss Jr.
Well, first of all, I'm glad they didn't get penalized for Lane leaving.
I agree.
I do think that they will probably be a different team without Lane Kiffin there and his involvement with the offense. You're also going to have a lot of different dynamics with a lot of these teams. Oregon, both of their coordinators accepted head coaching jobs.
Yes, they did.
So how is that going to impact any prep for the CFP, if at all?
Some would say Brian Hartline taking a job impacted their prep for the Big Ten championship. Some would say.
For Ohio State.
Yeah.
So you have that. You also have the group of 5 coaches, both
yes.
take new jobs as well. So there's a lot of people juggling some stuff here over the next 2 weeks. That's going to be interesting, and we can find out more, afterwards if those things play into.
I do think Lane not being there is intriguing, though, because everybody's saying that Charlie Weiss Jr. is the play caller, and that's perfectly fine. But Lane Kiffin is the architect, right?
Like, it's his offense.
It is his offense. So
that's why he's bringing Charlie Weiss Jr. with him to LSU. Like, they're going to do the same thing at LSU. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. What about Texas A&M? We didn't talk about them at all. They dropped because of that loss to Texas. They're going to have to now play all 4 rounds. High variance team.
High variance.
Got to go through Miami, then Ohio State.
There might be 8
do that?
interceptions in the Miami A&M game, by the way.
Whichever quarterback has the least amount of interceptions wins. But that's we said Ohio State has the toughest path. So Miami would have to go through that.
Yes.
And so would Texas A&M.
Yes. I think we both have agreed, though, that if A&M plays their A game, that's a team that can win it all.
Okay.
Right?
But they're going to have to go do the A game.
Oh, it's going to be a gauntlet.
4 times.
It reminds me a little bit of Ohio State in the sense that was a team that a lot of us were like, if they're on, they could win the whole thing. And they had to play all the games, and they turned it on. And they did win the whole thing a year ago. But it's about, number one, protecting the football. But number 2, that defense will give up some big plays. Like that is a problem for me right now with A&M more than anything else, is that defense needs to figure out ways to not give up explosives.
Okay, so before we go, can you give me the teams you think can win it all?
The teams I think can win it all. Indiana absolutely can win it all. Ohio State is in that conversation. Georgia, to me, you put them right. You could put them in between Indiana and Ohio State. To me right now, the way that they're playing, I like Tech. That's it. Maybe Oregon, full strength Oregon. I'm kind of in on that, but that's where I would draw the line.
I think I'm at 3.5 as well.
Yeah.
Like Texas Tech defense, yes.
Yes.
Offense,
that offense
I don't know.
could be a problem.
I don't know.
In the postseason,
and again,
sure.
Depends how the individual matchup is with those teams, but I do want to make sure, because we barely talked about Indiana.
Right.
The number 1 seed in the college football playoff, the number 1 team in the country, the Indiana Hoosiers.
It's an interesting thing that Indiana is so good, and they're winning so undramatically to a point that we just glaze over them. This is just what they do.
And I want to make sure I say this, because that is a team that we talk about, oh my gosh, the massive improvement for year 1 in Kurt Cignetti.
Right.
From 1 to 2, the ability to beat the Oregons and to beat Ohio States, that is such an improvement from the roster standpoint, the preparation standpoint. That was their issue last year. They played the teams with better athletes, the NFL guys, and they could not beat them. And they couldn't keep it close.
No, that's the thing.
And now they're beating those teams. I mean, it is just remarkable. So they're absolutely.
Yeah, Sig is a madman. I've got this conspiracy. No, it's very complimentary. I think Nick Saban hid Curt Cignetti from the world because at the height of his power, Cignetti might be the best coach in college football history.
He sent him to Indiana,
Pennsylvania, because he's like, I can't let this guy get a big job in the Big Ten or SEC because he might be the best coach ever.
And then only Indiana was willing to give them a look, right? He couldn't get a bigger job than that. Man, wouldn't that be something if they end up winning it all?
My God.
They have a path that they can do that. Whew.